This episode of the Houseplant Home Tour on Plant One On Me is brought to you by 4th generation family-owned and operated Espoma Organic, which produces superior organic gardening products for both the indoor and outdoor gardener. You can look out for Espoma products like their potting medium, amendments, and organic fertilizers at your local garden center and at espoma.com. Hey guys, so welcome to my 2020 Houseplant Home Tour. It's spring, we're still sheltering in due to the coronavirus, and my 365 Days of Plants project is finished. So I figured it would be nice to actually do a home tour here. So welcome. So I am in my kitchen, and actually this is not typically how this is set up or has been set up, because I usually have a nice cushy chair right here because I hung up a number of bird feeders outside where I could watch my birds in the morning. And I have to tell you, I've been getting more and more bird feeders because these little beasts are hungry. I cannot keep up with them, but they are so enjoyable to watch. And so far, I know we're not talking plants, but we're talking birds here. So far we have house sparrows, house finches, mourning doves, red-winged blackbird. I saw one sighting of a kestrel, pigeons of course, rock doves, and a starling. So that's my grand biodiversity here in the urban jungle of Brooklyn. But I want to show you around my kitchen. There's obviously a lot to see. We're not going to get to notice all of the plants because most of it is going to be just green everywhere, but we'll showcase and highlight some little things. This is my little movable tea cozy. So I have my nice herbs and glasses and some tea behind here. And I didn't really know what to do with the top of this shelf. In my first houseplant home tour, you'd remember that I had a huge kitchen cozy right here, but my place has been going under non-elective construction, and this is a new heating box that they installed. As a matter of fact, they installed it incorrectly. So they're going to have to reinstall some of this as well. They can't have wood here, they have to have it metal. So the construction is like a never-ending process. So I'm glad there's a halt to it right now so I could actually do a little bit more of the tour. But you'll notice this beautiful begonia luxurians that I have here, and a Zamioculcas zamiifolia, which I had accidentally cropped off when I was repotting my friend Tara's ZZ plant. And over here I have some tillandsia, and in the back you'll notice my beautiful Aglaonema pictum tricolor. So when I featured this in 365 Days of Plants, it was probably only 3 leaves, and now it's got probably like 7 or 8 leaves in there. And this is my tillandsia streptophylla, and if you remember when I was showcasing this on 365 Days of Plants, it wasn't as curly as it is now, but it actually uncurls when it's in a much more humid environment, and it starts to curl up when it's a little bit drier. So this is something that I'm gonna have to water pretty soon. I like to dunk them into some distilled water, and I'll spray in a little tillandsia fertilizer in there so it gets some nutrients. And then through my Philodendron beatiae and my Chlorophytum comosum, you'll see my vertical swing garden, which, if you haven't seen already, you could see basically how I assembled this. I'll leave a link up above, and you'll see some more plants hanging up here. Not really part of the vertical swing garden, but this is a pseudo ripsalis, and that is also another type of ripsalis up there. But you'll see lots of Hoyas. My Hoyas are kind of going crazy here. My Tenanthe, it's curling around the edges. It's probably a little dry. Yes, it is. I'm gonna have to water that. And my Ardisia, and then here's my Japortia. Some little leaves that are drying up that I'll eventually clip off when they get totally brown, but for right now they're yellow and they're fine. I actually just switched up a plant out here. I put my begonia in here. It was in a much smaller container and it was growing pretty rapidly, so I wanted to give that a good container. And you'll notice a lot of my double plant shelves, which again is one of the keys to getting more space in your home for plants, is having these double windowsills, which I think are just a marvelous addition. Of course, you block out a little bit more of your light that's coming in. Whenever I take them off, if I have to kind of fix the bird feeders or fuss with the bird feeders, and I have to take the plants off, I'm like always amazed with just the little extra light that comes in. The plants really do gobble all that good light up. But look at how close I could get to these birds. Like they're just very tame. The mourning doves don't really spook that much, which is kind of cool. Hello. Hello. I think they know I feed them. I'm a good person. And then you'll see I have my Ficus deltoidea that's here. I have another one that actually went a little leafless, but it's still alive, so I'm just going to take care of that along with this one. And some Discidias right here. My Ceropegia cutting. Accidentally knocked this one off when I was watering my plants. And you can see under the shelf, I thought this was an amanthus, or columnella, I can't remember which one it is, goldfish plant. And then I took this little cutting of my Tenanthe, and then my African violet has been weird because the leaves were so beautiful before it was flowering, and now that it's put out all these flowers, the leaves have really died back. So I kind of think like, African violet may ebb and flow a little bit, but it was just flush with beautiful purple green leaves, no blooms, just starting to bud, and then all of a sudden all flowers. So maybe it's putting more energy in the flowers right now, and it's kicking back a little bit on the foliage. Maybe I should fertilize it a little bit differently, I don't know, but it's kind of going in and out. My thyme that I just got, because I'm cooking a lot more with thyme. People ask like how I cook in this place, and it's actually set up, the kitchen space is really weird. I mean, I kind of have to go with the space. I've been in this space for about 15 years now. And so just had to really work with it. But you could see it's a sensible setup. I mean, my refrigerator is right here, and I could turn around and start cutting. Like I have this big celery root, this celeriac. You move this and imagine chop, 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 chop. Here's my compost. I could set it right there, pull it right out, put that into the freezer and wait until the compost pick up, and just slide that back over. And then I just move things over, grab a pot from here, put it on the pot, turn on the stove or the oven, and it just makes so much sense. I actually have a vermicomposter, but it's really not in use right now. I'd have to get more worms for it. There is a little bit of upkeep when it's in your house, and you don't want to get them too cold. So in the winter months, if it's like really drafty or if it gets too hot, that's not always great for the worms. So just have a little bit more maintenance and upkeep, but now that it's spring and summer, I could probably bring some red wigglers back, start doing some vermicomposting. Then this has changed around a little bit because when the plants get really big here, that's when they kind of start moving over into the sink, and then it's hard to actually do the dishes. So the tallest plant right now is actually, believe it or not, my begonia metallica. Beautiful, right? I mean, look at the base of those leaves, the red and the purple, and then the metallic dark green fuzzy leaves on top. And you might have noticed that I had, I think at one point, my Pachira aquatica here, the very variegated version, or the Schefflera actinophila nova. So my Schefflera is up here because, again, I got too big, and my Pachira aquatica is actually here. And I noticed it's starting to lose some of the dappled variegation on its leaves. So, it's getting more light than it ever has because it's now directly in the window. So I hope it doesn't go all green on me because it's had such beautiful variegation, and I've had this plant for probably 4 or 5 years now. I can't remember, but it's been with me for a while. But you could see that I love cute little pots, especially for this place, because this place has a little bit more of a cottagey feel. And I started collecting more chicken pots. Oh, this is an interesting one. So I used to have my peperomia clover growing in here, and that got eaten pretty badly by my house mouse situation, which is totally resolved now. But I had forgotten to water this maidenhair fern, this adiantum, and it started to crisp up. And one of the things with maidenhair ferns is that they're pretty resilient. That root structure down there is pretty resilient. So I cut all of the dead fronds back, and all of a sudden I got all these new little fiddleheads and all this new growth that started to pop up just last week. Here's a new little one popping up right here. You see that? You might be itching to actually throw something like this away, especially if you see that it dies back. But I would encourage you not to do that, especially with some of these ferns, because even though they seem very delicate, they are actually really resilient. They have a really resilient root structure. And adiantums, maidenhair ferns, are actually native. Many of them are native to the Northeast here. So they go through typically like this cold period, and of course they die back, and then every spring they kind of emerge again. So a lot of these guys are really resilient. Same thing for this Phlebodium aureum, if I could kind of will it out of here. Some stems kind of coming. So this one was eaten back all the way to this one. You could see that this was the only leaf, and it was eaten back by the mouse, so you could see all the little rough edging. But you see this little rootstock under here? That's where it gets its name of aureum, because it has this goldish kind of rhizome. And it put out 4 more leaves in this tiny little planter. And that's one of the ways that you could actually propagate this, is just take some of that rhizome that grows, that fuzzy little rhizome, and boom, you got another Phlebodium aureum. So yeah, so there's a lot of like cool little plants that are here, a lot of Hoyas. Look at this beautiful begonia that I got from Steve's Leaves. I love that coloration. And you could see also I have some succulents like this Haworthia truncata right here, which does not necessarily need to be in a southern or western exposure. If you're in the Northeast, I'm in the Northeast. I have a lot of Aussies that watch, and folks from New Zealand, and they're in the southern hemisphere, so it's quite the opposite. But here, this is my Northeast window in the Northeast and the northern hemisphere, and I get a much gentler light through here, and Haworthias don't mind being in a little bit more gentle light. I love these. This is my little Fittonia. This plant is a good terrarium plant. It likes to maintain some moisture and humidity, like a spathiphyllum, which is like a peace lily, which I'll show you in a few. This could get really droopy if you don't give it a little bit more love and water, so yeah. Oh, and then I should show you that I've done a little propagation. This is just water propagation for one of my Marantas. It didn't have an extensive root system where I had it and it planted, and so I wanted to give it a little cutting, and you could see that it's growing all sorts of different adventitious roots and roots everywhere. So that's going to be ready for potting up. And you could, do that through water propagation. You could also do it through soil propagation. I did a Tenanthe propagation, and I'll show you how that plant fared, because it actually propagated really nicely in its soil. Yeah, but I'd encourage you to look up. I mean, look at Hoya Bella. It's just getting an inflorescence on there. It's not ready to bloom, but I'm excited for that. Basically, I wanted to feel in my kitchen as if I'm just walking into a little bit of a forest, and I'm cooking in the forest. So that meant actually, surrounding myself with all sorts of different plants. Hoya retusa was actually in bloom. It only put out one little flower. It doesn't have a flower on it now, but this is one of many Hoya retusas that I have around my house. And then if you look down here, you'll see that this Macrophylla variegata is in bloom, and it's putting out all different sorts of like sugars coming off of it, which could attract ants, I would imagine, if it were outdoors. Luckily, I don't have ants in my house. And yeah, this shelf is a little like crazy. But I have this fluorescent grow light that I'd shown you in one of my earlier episodes of how to increase light in your home. And this does get a little hot to the touch. So it actually warms up my countertop, believe it or not. And I found that it's actually a great place to start seeds, which I'll have to do another episode on. But you'll see that I actually have some cypress vine seeds here. You'll see one that's already started to root. This one is an old seed that I already took. So I'll have to show you a little bit more on that, but it's a great place to start seeds because it actually does warm up here on the top, and that stimulates the seed to break open and for the roots to grow. But I couldn't resist to put more plants on my countertop. I have to resist from the standpoint of like, I need my countertop for other things, like actually cooking and preparing food. So you can see that I have everything kind of shoved a little bit more towards the window, but you'll notice my Asplenium kenzoi, and here is my Clivia and some of my Begonia Maurice, which I really love. I love this kind of black coloration of the leaf. Similarly, black, I have this Ardisia. That's this beautiful black, blue, green metallic leaf. I mean, look at that. That came from a cutting. And my Quesnalia behind here, which is a great plant, great upright plant for small spaces. And then Hoya Kamingiana. Look at this, it's going gangbusters all over the place. I have another one over there somewhere, but it's growing up here. It's kind of attached with my other Hoya here. I love when the plants and the stems and the leaves just start to intertwine. And then you could get the sense that these plants have been here for a while and they've been growing in their space for a while, which I love. When my home was under construction, I had Heterohelix Gold Heart, this ivy that was growing all up my walls and my windows. And actually, I think the Kippy photo is over it. Oh, you can actually see some of the leftovers from the vine. So they actually, just trying to peel that off the wall, it kind of ripped the paint off and left some of its markings. So it's almost like a scar on my wall. But I had to remove that because they replaced all the windows. But that's okay. I mean, sometimes you lament the fact that these plants have been growing here for a while, but you embrace the fact that you could actually grow something else. And if you look up, again, I still have plenty of plants, my Philodendron Bietier and Pseudorhipsalis, my other philodendron over here, and my asparagus fern, Aeshcananthus, and I have a Schlumbergera. I mean, there's just so much. There's so much to look at. Okay, so that was the kitchen. So let's make our way over into the dining room and then into the living room. All right, that wasn't much of a walk, but this is where I eat most of the time at the table. And I work a lot here too, because I like looking out, and it's so pleasant now to be able to look out and see some of my birds smickling away. That's what I call them when they smickle, when they eat a lot. And the mourning doves are very boisterous with one another, so they'll knock each other off, so it's like a gladiator competition. It's really funny. But this is my kitchen space. I got some peonies. I couldn't resist. I grew up with peonies. My mom used to grow peonies, and I just loved actually grabbing the full flower heads because they're just so fluffy and full. And actually, these are little bellflowers, and these are not cut flowers. They're actually with roots, and these can actually be planted up outside, even between like some paving stones and stuff. So I actually got one of these and planted them up in my community garden, which is like really fun. But you'll notice I have my Tillandsia kind of out here. I have some peperomia, some Hoyas, my moss terrarium, a little feather from Kippy. I always just like remember her. I have actually a little bucket full of feathers that I found around the house of hers. And yeah, that's my little That's my little memory of Kippy. That and her little Kippy's garden and some photos. You'll see some more photos of her around the house. But here's my other peperomia, and of course, if you've been like watching the channel, you'll notice the first DIY project that I ever did with my dad, which is this mason jar garden, which has been really fun. I just switched out one of the plants that wasn't really doing well in there, so hopefully this is a nice little mix for a little while. And then my tetrastigma vine, which is up here, it had some mealybugs on it, so I've been very diligent at being able to take some of them off. Mealybugs kind of like came and infested a little bit more of my pothos, and some of my monstera. Ugh, was terrible. So I've been kind of like on mealybug duty all the time. This one had mealybugs, but I've been pretty persistent with it. And you can see that this vine of this Epiprenum aureum actually goes and spans all the way up. And if you notice, it came all the way down in the kitchen. And this is where it's landed. So I've kind of let it grow. It has a mind of its own, and I like that. So I'll keep that until I have to cut it back. And then you'll notice I have another marble queen right here that actually quite a while ago I did a propagation video on. So you'll notice that is hanging there. And I have some plants behind here with my hanga pots that I had featured in creating more space for your plants in your home. And then you'll notice the living room that opens up behind me. Quite a bit of stuff going on here since the last tour. So you'll still notice my ZZ plant. I have another plant that's kind of hanging up here, which is a jungle cactus. And then I think the biggest news is just all of these plants. So I have this one Soltech Solutions light, which I had featured in one of my other videos. I have 3 of these. They're amazing. I'll give you my code. It's summer15 if you want one for 15% off. These are great. You could see the way that the leaves are just of my Philodendron erubescens is just moving up towards the light. It's a little dusty, so you probably see some dust particles. And it is kind of shading out some of the light for some of these plants below, but a lot of these plants are actually understory plants and or climbers. So they will kind of climb up and find that light. So you'll notice this Monstera adansonii, which has these big leaves, started to climb and is now starting to put out a leaf up here. So I wanted to give my Monstera adansonii a place to grow up on. And this was being tossed outside on the street by one of the plant shops that's by me. So I ended up taking it. It was on their display, and I decided, okay, well, I'm gonna reuse that. But you'll notice a lot of Aglaonemas. My Dieffenbachia that I had in 365 Days of Plants, it was getting really caney and pretty tattered by my door, but I love the coloration of these leaves, and it's got like a lot of kippy tears out of it. So I have it actually planted up here, and I stuck the stem down because Dieffenbachia, they don't age well, they get really stemmy. So I stick the stem down into the dirt so maybe it would actually root up in more places. And I think it looks really pretty against this Aglaonema pictum. It has a very similar coloration, as you could see. And some of these other Aglaonemas, you could see my Juportia, also known as Calathea network, my Dieffenbachia reflector, some Birkins here, and this is my Ludicea discolor and another Ardisia or coralberry. My Schefflera actinophylla came over here instead, and I have this Zingiber, which is just wonderful. I got it as a cutting, and that has just been a wonderful plant. And then you see I have my fern back here, my Drinaria ridula. It's crazy, it's kind of growing all over the place. And then my Philodendron melanochrysum over here. This one's interesting. This is Aglaonema. It's called Chocolate. I love the undersides of the leaves. You'll see, and then it has this like pink striping. Beautiful. And what else? There's a lot of things planted in here. There's like even little plants planted in. Here's another Monstera siltepecana. Wow, there's a lot of stuff. I forgot how much I have over here. But you could see that it's all being supplemented by this one light, and that's really amazing. I could probably use one more of those, but I'd have to figure out another way of like how to work it. But you could see as all the foliage is going to start to compete, much in the same way that if you have an ecosystem outside, some are winners, some are losers. But right now, I think all of these are pretty much winning. And you'll notice that, you know, this has been a stalwart of my house, Scindapsus pictus. I mean, it just keeps on growing and growing. It's over there. It's struggling to get to the other side of that place, but it's pretty much getting into this room. It's probably 3/4 through this room already. So I'll show that when I move into the bedroom. And my Dracaena and my Aglaonema, and here's another Sansevieria. This is a little dusty. I'm gonna have to dust this off. It's like furniture. It's kind of like it just picks up dust and it gets a little embarrassing after a while, but it's part of having plants. And then I have my Aspidistra, and it was getting, you know, kind of spacious in here. So I ended up putting my Anthurium, and then look at this. So I was doing a little workout in my house, and I was doing jump rope, and I freaking jump roped this right off. I was just doing this, and then that jump rope came and like sliced it off, and I felt so bad. I'm so sorry, Anthurium. So anyway, I did some underplanting in there, and I was watching my friend's snake plant, and you might have noticed I had a couple plants back here. I tried a Dracaena. I tried a Pothos neon. Was that what it was? Or was it philodendron? I can't remember. No, it was a Pothos. And it got mealy, but the Dracaena dropped too many leaves. The Pothos, because there's not a lot of light here. There really isn't. And I got this torchère lamp to put grow lights in, and I have to tell you, I didn't like them. It's that balance between making your house cozy and also wanting to supplement with light for your plants. And honestly, this is my cozy space. It's now, especially with sheltering in, I wanted to get this beautiful like fern just draping over my head so I could sit here and read and just be part of this like plant womb, you know? And I got these little fire lights that at night, I have to tell you, I might film a little bit at night just to show you how beautiful these are at night. It's just, it feels like you're just in the country. The wood fire is just kind of going down. It's so pleasant. So anyway, the idea was to get this because a grow light could go up against the whiteness of the ceiling and kind of bathe the whole room in light. And then here it would actually give a little bit more light to the plant. So I was watching my friend's snake plant, and I really loved how the way it looked here. So I ended up getting one for my own right here. So I put that, and we'll see how it works. And then this is my Chamaedorea metallica, and I hadn't been really growing palms, and I was inspired to grow one, and I featured this in 365 Days of Plants. And I had it actually potted in a green pot that I actually moved out onto my fire escape, AKA balcony, because that's what I'm using it as right now. And I moved it into this like really nice matte white burning pottery. I really love the way that this looks. And this is like an old stool that my friend got me from his time when he was working with Google. And it makes a nice plant stand, but you could also use it as a seat as well. All right, so that's the living room. I think we'll probably make our way into the bedroom. All right, so this is my bedroom. Obviously, the main feature is the green wall, and it's been a little finicky as of late. I think it's just getting old and tired, but this first top bar started to drip a little bit, so started to just patch some of the holes there in a kind of massive DIY fashion. But for the rest of it, for the most part, the rest of it is pretty okay. The semi-permeable membrane is not fully continuous through any of these, so some of the plants actually were sitting in some water. Some dry out a little bit too much. So this one needs a little bit perfection, but it's been okay so far. I have to change some plants out, like this Aglaonema. It's getting so stemmy and stalky, so obviously this is not going to look very good. For the most part, it looks great when the plants are nice and bushy and compact, and of course they grow out. This is one of the first plants that I've had in this wall. All the way up here, and you notice it's obviously not bushy, but it's very long. And I've cut this back multiple times. Otherwise it'd be like 100 feet long now. And it's growing in the same soil. So this requires definitely some more maintenance than most because you have to pull them out. I have had some mealybugs issues, again, on my pothos. I don't know what it is about pothos and mealybugs, but I have to stay on top of it because they could obviously transfer to other plants. What else is new? I don't know if I had this from my last home tour, but this is like this nice iron shelving that I bought for initially in my kitchen, but it was so heavy that I just ended up putting it on my green wall. And then of course, my snake plants down here that I started to grow. I just got some that make it look a little bit like grass. And these are like little metal chickens that I had that was growing in my community garden. But because they were going to tear my community garden plot down because they were moving out the wall, I ended up having to move a lot of the stuff into different beds. And I took these chickens in, and I kind of like them indoors. And it's just another homage to Kippy, which I'll show you. I have a little memorial for her up here because this is actually the door where she would sleep. And then we just pull the door out like this. And there is a little latch that would hold the door, and then this would come out, and I would hang a little, what I call a poop hammock. So it would be a towel that kind of hangs here, and so it would be relatively clean for having an indoor chicken. I think that was a question that people often asked. But yeah, Kippy would sleep up here, and that is my little homage to my bird. I miss her. So whenever I look up from the bed, it should be here, I could look up at her and see her, which is really nice. So before I get too far into the rest of the room, I want to show you some of the changes I made. Oh, but first, you might remember the Tenanthe that I repotted in the Tenanthe propagation. And this is it. So it actually took really well in the soil. I could probably cut out some of these little brown tips. But I used to have a lot of my prayer plants over in my garden over there. And you know, I actually moved them a little bit more over here. And I had this little LED grow light strip under here that has now since diminished. So I'm gonna need to reinstall that. And I actually am growing more of my prayer plants over here, and they work out really well. And then something that I'm a little bit embarrassed to show you, because if there's one thing that I kind of let grow amok, it is my Paludarium in my biopod. And I mean, look at this thing. The Procris and the maidenhair wire vine went right up to, it got dried out. It was like what was it, Icarus when he flew to the sun, whatever. This is going to be a whole other project. I'm going to have to clip this back and find out what's growing in here. I mean, I see this Ficus villosa is going nuts over here, and this other Ficus pumila variegata, this Procris, I mean, there's just so much in here, and there's probably so much that died back. I mean, if you don't cut back your biopod, like I haven't cut back my biopod, it's just death for some plants, and then you see the ones who are the real survivors. So this needs to be kept up, and that is going to be a whole other project. I promise you of that. But it might be a little start over with this game. And again, this thing kind of takes care of itself to a certain extent until the plants grow, and you have to you have to cut them back. This is like really embarrassing. But between my book tour and filming the 365s and editing everything, sometimes things, you can't stay on top of all things all at the same time. This is one of the things that I kind of like let go for a little while. All right, let's move on. And you might notice this defoliated tree right here. Well, this is deciduous. You might recognize this as my Nidoscoleus actinifolius, or my chaya, my Mexican spinach. You can see this one I accidentally clipped off. It gets a real latexy look. And it actually started putting out lots of new leaves, and then I moved it out into my fire escape, AKA balcony, and because it was still cold out, all the leaves dropped. But this is a very hardy plant. So again, I moved it in. It'll probably start putting out green again, I would guess, in like probably 2-3 weeks. And hopefully then it will be warm enough that I'll end up putting it outside. And it's great. You know, I have a little bit of bird feeders out here as well, and the birds like to sit on it. And you'll notice some other green stuff that I have growing on my fire escape. Oh, look at the little inflorescence of my Peperomia delstedii. That's fun. This one's a little yellow, so I'm guessing that it needs a little bit more magnesium. So I'm gonna have to get on that for anything that looks a little bit too yellow to me. And then of course, I'm not gonna go through everything here, but this is my closet garden. You'll notice another one of these awesome Soltech solution lights. And yeah, the plants just love it. Sometimes they don't love it as much. If this one is my philodendron, if they grow up too close to the light, you could see they could start to damage the leaves. It starts to get a little yellow, so I have to be careful for that. Oh, this is a cutting of a monkey puzzle tree. Isn't that fun? So these are evergreen trees that have funky geometric leaf shapes, so I ended up getting a little cutting of that. Southwest facing windows, my little tea succulent garden, which you'll notice. A lot of my haworthias are sticking out inflorescences now, which is really nice. And then you'll notice a bunch of my succulents down here. You could see this adenium, which will go outside very soon too. This will start putting out leaves again as well. It usually gets these really beautiful fuchsia color flowers, so nice. Last year it was like 60 blooms. The year before that was 60 blooms. The year before that, I had some mealybug issues and I didn't have many leaves and flowers. And then I put it outside in the summer and poof, it's really nice. That's why it's nice to have like a little fire escape, a little balcony, because some plants just do well if you kind of move them outdoors. And this kalanchoe, of course, just kind of like cropped up in it. They'll just like move in anywhere they damn well please. So the other feature that I should probably say is just if you look outside this window, it's a little dirty, so I'm sorry about that, but I have a climbing hydrangea out there now. And the idea is to have some climbing plants. So on this side, I have a climbing hydrangea, and then I have a trumpet creeper on the other side, which doesn't look like much really now, and a Parthenocissus cinquefolia, which is a Virginia creeper. So, and I have a variegated one. So hopefully they'll start to leaf out around June time. And my idea is just to have a fire escape that's like filled with plants climbing over. They'll get really big, so I have to be careful and might have to actually prune them. Then another big feature, look at this Rhaphidophora tetrasperma. It stems all the way from down here with my other little yellow chicken with blue dots, and it just has clambered all the way up. I got this from Chelsea Garden Center, and it was on a post. It was staked to a post up to here. And this is just a climber. And I know a lot of folks who have Rhaphidophora tetraspermas are going through the same experience of just having so much leafage and so much foliage. I could take so many cuttings of this plant. I'm almost tempted to create a trellis on my ceiling and having it climb up that way, which is amazing. And you'll, of course, again, notice some of my hanging plants like my Kleinia, which doesn't have its stinky blooms anymore. And then this, my Curio radicans right here, and a bunch of other plants in the back. Oh, and here you go. You have my, I can't even think of the name of this right now, but beautiful shape of the leaves. It's springtime. These often get infected with thrips, usually in the summer months, so I'll probably end up moving this outside, but why can't I think of it? It's like a cassava, so Manihot esculenta, so that's what the name is. And some more succulents, because that's what this window really is made for. And you'll see like my thicker Rhipsalis. My Xerosicios dangui, you could see it actually growing up, which is a lot of fun. And if you just look up here above the storage, then you'll notice I have some Tillandsias, which are looking pretty good. And yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable, but these plants are actually, they stem from over this corner, and you could see that, I think this is my Nongduct vine, and it's going all the way up here, and it's made its way over here. And then, oh, and if you look up there, you see that where the Syndapsis pictus has started to shingle on the wall? Isn't that so cool? Usually it doesn't shingle in the house, but right up on the edge. And some of this plant is from that area, and you can see that it's starting to grow out this way, which I can't wait until my silver pothos touches from one wall to the other. Just amazing, just amazing. And I didn't even show you this giant Hoya carnosa. This hasn't bloomed for me, believe it or not. I removed it from its old area because it didn't really have a trellis. And oh my God, this is like, it's like 60, 70, 80 feet long. So this is really twined upon itself, but it hasn't flowered for me yet, and I don't know why. And then of course you have like my Rhipsalis. This is my Hoya multiflora. I think I posted a photo on my Instagram. It was in bloom, which is pretty amazing, and a Euphorbia, and my Syndapsis trubii, and my Anthurium right here. There's so much to look at. I can't go through it all, but yeah, make sure you get a nice span of the green wall. It's, like I said, finicky, but still fun. And I don't know, let's go in the workroom. Workroom. It's a little messy. This is my work table now. So this is where I actually shot all the 365 days of plants, but the table was moved this way and I was facing this way and hitting the black back wall, removed everything from the wall, that kind of stuff. But this is another place where I could work and pot plants up. And you'll notice I have some really fun planters. I mean, take a look at these. How charming are these planters? Yeah, no, yeah. Yeah, so I have a lot of like fun planters that I'm looking to plant up. This one, a little bit of the top of the chicken, the rooster kind of fell off, so I'm gonna have to like repaint that. Look how adorable. So yeah, I got a nice little selection of stuff that I'd like to be able to pot up, but I have some plants that are keeping me company here, like this Peperomia obtusifolia. Got this beautiful Anthurium that looks like it has these undulations on its leaves. This Ficus lyrata bambino that I got from Steve's Leaves. Another one of my Discidias kind of flying around. And this is a little bit of a jibber jarble stuff here. This ZZ plant is one of the ones that I repotted, and this has to go to my friend Tara because this is her plant that she gave me. And this is obviously one of the offsets, and this is the plant that I want to actually gift her back. So, and then this is where I'm starting seeds. So I promise it's a little janky setup here, but this is what I have. I don't have much room, but I'll go over seed starting another time. And you can see here's my third Soltech Solution light right here. These leaves are getting a little yellow because, like I said, the light is pretty intense, but by the time you get down here, it's actually perfect for most plants. This is my Hoya volubilis, my blooming onion. So you could see it's kind of grown up on my plants. My philodendron Florida Alba Beauty is also attached to my Hoya imperialis. So you guys can see how they're all kind of like tangled up into one another. And if you want to actually take one plant down, so you could empathize with me when I was 365 days of plants, trying to get some of these plants off of one another was nearly impossible. So some of them actually didn't get their 3 minutes of fame, so to speak. So you could see that it's just a nice selection, a lot of Hoyas, some philodendrons, some aroids, some of my Ceropegias you could see, which are just like a fun little growth structure. Again, this goes back to my green stick plants. And then of course my grass-leaved Hoya, or my Hoya retusa, which you saw earlier. My Clusia, this was actually flowering earlier, which was fun. I think I have some Instagram photos there. And then I have this other grouping of plants here, my Maranta Leucanora silver band. This is one of the peperomias I had growing in my kitchen, and I ended up moving it here because I was so afraid that mice would actually get to it. And then you have my Thematophyllum sprucianum putting on a new leaf, and a lot of aroids here that are kind of growing in all sorts of ways. My Hoyas, my Nephthys in the back. Oh my God, there's so much stuff, so much stuff. This has gone out of control. I was about to say under control, and it's not under control. But this Hoya actually had just bloomed. You could see right there. It smelled so wonderful at night. Very jasmine-y, very, very, very delicate smell, but powerful. And oh my God, there's so look at this beautiful specimen right here. Echeveria agavoides with the darker coloration on the tips. Usually you'll see like red tips, but this one has a little bit more of like dark aubergine blackish red. It's so beautiful. It's ridiculously beautiful. So that has become one of my favorite echeverias. This was in my hanging basket, but kind of moved it here. This is my Neurogelia passiflora. And then you'll see all these little Hoyas. The Hoyas are impossible. They're now impossible to take out because they've just kind of twined on everything. My Cissus in the back. There's just so much. There's so much. This is my another southwest facing window. This Kalanchoe was just actually in bloom, which I love the coloration of this. Woo! Oh my God, I almost like tipped that over. So this is like my Kalanchoe. Really love that coloration. And like I said, it was just in bloom, but I really love the dried seed heads. I mean, they're really pretty. So I'll leave those on. And then of course you have my booby cactus right here. So it's just started to put out some new growth in the window, and I've kind of moved it in a way so that it could start to move a little bit towards the light so it stands a little bit straighter up. And then you might notice these from 365 Days of Plants. These are my Syringias. And you know, like I said, I love green stick plants. Like here's another one right here. It's just nice to see them kind of grow in between other plants with lots of different foliage. And this one in particular is just so fuzzy. It's so nice. It's like a little sweater. And then you'll notice like my Myrtillo cactus right here, which is crested. So this has some kind of, I wouldn't say defect, it just has something that has shifted in its genes. And I have another crested variety right here. You can see I have a lot of crests over here. So these are some crests, some crested ones down there that are really beautiful. Oh, and this crassula looks like it's about to bloom, so I could probably plant something else up in here. I'm waiting for something else to get planted, but you could see the bloom starting to emerge out of this crassula. And you could also, I don't want to, you know, turn away from these blooms here, but this echeveria is blooming, and it's been blooming for quite some time too. They really hold on to their blooms. Really pretty. All right, moving on to this window. Oh, and I should probably point this out. This is another one of my grape ivies, Cissus antarctica, I believe this is the scientific name of. And again, not one that I could actually feature in 365 Days of Plants because it's in its place. But then you'll notice this leaf right here. And I believe this is called Anderia, I can't remember, cordifolia. This is like an invasive species in a lot of places, and it grows like crazy. You could see the root structure, the root stock down here, and you could see how many different types of areas that it's going to start growing out. And of course it loves the sun, and it will kind of take over the windows. So you'll notice there's not a lot of like leafage right here, and all the leaves are actually moving towards the windows, which totally makes sense. So if I wanted to hang up another light right here, then you'll probably get more growth in this area. But for right now, the plant is putting all of its efforts into the windows. And you'll notice again, southwest facing windows, I have a lot of succulents here. You're just starting to see some of that heavy light come in, but since it's southwest, you'll start to see the western exposure. The sun is going to go down in the evenings, but it really gets hot and intense, especially in the summer. And you'll notice a little bit more of my Curio radicans. This is a smaller leaved variety than the one that I have growing in the other room. And then you'll notice that I have Sedum burrito right here. And then I have a crassula all the way up top. And I love this euphorbia. Look at this euphorbia, Enterophora. That's actually, or xylophoides, I think it's called now, but just kind of growing into the windows. And you could see how the cissus, look at how it's growing up. I won't be able to open up my window without breaking this little tendril off, but it just is growing where it kind of wants to. And then you'll notice all my cacti and succulents here. They're obviously growing towards the light. Some of them are probably a little limper than I would like them to be. You know, they are trying to grow towards the light, so that's something to take notice of. But yeah, lots of fun little varieties that you may have actually remember from 365 Days of Plants. This is another vining cucumber that just started to vine out again. It could go deciduous at times, and you might have recognized it also from tours through Thailand. And of course, my Peperomia incana, leafed out a little bit more. Nice fuzzy petable leaves. And of course I have some of my hanging basket plants and my fig. It's got a little white paint that came down on it, but I've tried to kind of move it and shift it in the space. So I've moved it away from the window because if it gets too much into the light, it will burn itself. But I can't have it too far into this room, and I still want to be able to go under and access my plants over here and water them. And this could get too beastly, and I think I've mentioned this before, but I had to cut it back by about 2/3. So it was a much leafier beast before, but with all the construction workers in my house, it kept on getting bumped and bumped and bumped, and this doesn't like to be bumped so much. So, but now I think it's stabilized, and it'll probably start to grow again this season. And it's actually started to put out some new growth over there. So fingers crossed, and it'll get leafy. It'll become a leafy beast again. But I think we only have one more room, and that's my bathroom. So I wouldn't say I saved the best for last, but it is a cute little bathroom. So let's go in there. All right, so this is my tiny little bathroom. I'm hiding behind the macrame toilet roll holders here. And there's actually a lot going on here. So I used to have my Calathea zebrina here. That one got mealybugs when I was away, and my friend Amos was taking care of the plants, and he was like, I can't handle the mealybugs. I'm like, just throw it in the shower and I'll deal with it. So that got switched out, but I have my Marantas. This one is actually going quite long. So it starts to get a little bare on top, and this is how the plants, they start to hang down. They'll hit the soil and start to root. But I like the look of it hanging down like that. So I have two different types of Marantas here. I have my Monstera right here, Hoya rotundifolia, another Hoya, and you'll see, if I could just have a seat right here on the Porcelain King, I have all my Procris repens, my Peperomia pucciolata, and another Procris repens. This is actually the same species, but you could see different forms. So this is a dark green variety, and this is one that has light green on the inside. And then I have my Peperomia orba and a number of Hoyas, and down here my snake plant, which is so cool. I have another one again. I like to kind of stick them in these tight places, like right here too. They pretty much grow up, they're upright. And then I have my Philodendron brantianums. I used to have my a glass terrarium here, and I moved that out. It's starting to get a little annoying because it was coming off the edge, and I wanted to have all my plants on the edge. And then this was in my kitchen, so I moved it here. And I got really inspired by seeing Bill Rodolante's Philodendron brantianum growing up on a stake and getting these really big, beautiful leaves. And so I got inspired, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll get this little birch bark and I'll try to grow it up here. And my Hoya linearis, it has not bloomed yet, but it's done really well in this window, so I can't complain. My Ripsalis pilocarpa, and then I'll also show you my other Epiprenum pinnatum Cibo blue. Look, it's actually going up and is attached to my wall and made its way up to the ceiling, which is so cool. And then I just have a lot of like different knickknacks here kind of coming down. My Ceropegia linearis subspecies woodii got too long. It would be hanging into the toilet bowl, so kind of just put it up here on the Aeschycanthus, and then you have this little mix right here. I could probably cut back some of these dry leaves of the Esoclades and have some little small offsets from my Tillandsias here. And then my Sarcostemma and some Dischidias up here. I mean, there is a lot going on in this little room. And if you look behind here, let me close the door. And you can see even I have a little place where I keep my toiletries, kind of well hidden, you know. They just feel a little bit more part of the space. Little soap dish, little leaf print soap dish. Just like these little things that make me feel really good and just like really pretty. My Procris repens out here. I had other types of plants that I had back here, but wasn't a lot of light, but my Procris repens, they're like understory plants and they seem to do very well. And then I just got this, and I'll show you another. This is Maggie Stevenson, and this is her cattails. I like the way it looked. And then whenever I do my washing or my laundry, I could just come here. If I close the door, I'm taking a shower. It's really nice to see some of that artwork, and I think that it really pulls nicely in with the colors that I have here, the terracottas and the dark blues. This blue kind of makes me think a little bit of Morocco, so I tried to achieve some of those colors in this tiny little space. But I think it works well. I think, again, you do a lot with just a little bit of what you have, and fresh coats of paint always make a room seem to just become more vibrant. But because I showed you Maggie's work here, I want to show you one of her other works over here. I really like supporting independent and local artists, so I have this piece that I also got, and I love this because, of course, it's a girl chilling on her hammock with her plants and her birds. And it just really made me think of my home, sitting in the hammock with Kippy, who I don't have anymore, but I have my birds outside and I have the chickens that I take care of. And of course, with all the plants and the delicate starlights above. I'm probably gonna keep my childhood painting up there. That's something I did, I think, when I was 12 years old, and I saw that photo from National Geographic. And then I'll point out some more of the artwork. Like this is my friend Stephen Kogel's work. It looks a little bit like a Basquiat. It's a political art piece on Guantanamo Bay. I really love the roughed up edging and everything of this on this canvas. The colors kind of pull in all the colors that I have of my house. And then this is a photo from my dear friend Joey L, who went to Ethiopia as a teenager. He's actually in Ethiopia right now. And he just took this really beautiful photo, and people wonder if it's a painting or a photo. And of course, Jenny's work from Living Pattern. These are just really just darling. And I have another one of hers, but I'm waiting on an art piece that's going to go above my. This is too small for this space, so I'm getting a larger one here above this. But I like being able to support independent artists. I like being able to support local artists. And so I have a lot of that here in my space, and I think it really ties it in with all the plants. And I have to say, after sheltering in here, it's just been really wonderful to be able to do it in something that makes me feel cozy and comfortable and creative and stimulated all at once. So anyway, there's so much to see, but I hope you really enjoyed this houseplant home tour with me. And please tune into the channel again, because we'll have more cool stuff that's coming out that way. And if you love the channel, don't forget to subscribe. It really does help it out. I really appreciate it. And hopefully we could do a part 2 sometime soon, and maybe even get out to the community garden. All right, see you guys later. If you're acquiring more plants and looking for ways to manage your houseplant care, then check out the 125 Houseplant Care spreadsheet, or access the 350 Houseplant Care spreadsheet in the month-long Houseplant Masterclass, which is a comprehensive audiovisual course on houseplant care, maintenance, and more. You can find out more at homesteadbrooklyn.com and houseplantmasterclass.com.